up. Yep.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave. You know the deal. Your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, bodybuilding and beyond, diet, training, supplementation, life, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. We got a lot of questions. And I know a lot of you have been saving your post-Olympia reactions and everything in between. So we're going to get right into it. Of course, the first 2 questions on this show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Interesting one here. I'm going to ask you 2 different questions. Dave, the question first is, looking at the top winners of the Olympia in the Classic Physique class, why is their look so different from back, with Arnold, Franco, Zane's era? So much different looking from then and now. So that's the first question. And I'm going to add another one onto it because on today's Muscle in the Morning, of course, you did a story about Arnold, his quote about how Classic Physique should be the centerpiece of the Olympia weekend. So first, again, why the difference between the top of the Classic Physique class now as opposed to the, era of Arnold, Franco, and Zane? And do you agree that perhaps Classic Physique maybe should have maybe even more of a prominent role come Olympia weekend?
You can't compare. I hate when people do this. You can't compare Arnold's era to this era because, number one, the guys today are 1,000 times more conditioned than Arnold's day. And it has nothing to do with drugs. It has a lot to do with diet. Now, drugs do play a part in it, obviously. But the bottom line is that Arnold didn't know you needed to have striated glutes because no one had striated glutes back then. So why get them, right? So they would diet to the point where they liked the way their body looked. And it was pleasing. And they had abs and they had, striations, in the areas that the judges seemed to look at. And everyone wore these big posing trunks that covered your butt. So no one worried about that. So right off the bat, you're going to have a conditioning difference. The reason Classic Physique was created was to help promote guys that have that small waist and that big structure who maybe can't hold the mass on their body, but that like that look. And it has a place in our organization. In other words, because the guys got so big in the open, a lot of times that classic look or disappeared because guys just forced their bodies to put on more muscle than they really needed to still look aesthetic. But at the end of the day, it's about muscle, right? The open class. So Classic gave the other guys an outlet where they would have a restriction on their weight. So everyone was kind of on an even playing field. If you're a certain height, you're limited by your weight. And it makes sense, keeps proportion. Guys in Arnold's era didn't have a weight limit. They just did what looked good, and some guys were bigger than other guys. But that's just the way it was. There was also really wasn't any growth hormone back then. You got to remember, maybe they were experimenting with some of the cadaver growth hormone that was around, but most people didn't have access to GH. And look, GH builds a lot more muscle, but it also, builds muscle everywhere, including the waistline. So it's a trade-off. Do you want more muscle or do you want a small waist? Sometimes you can't have both. And that's why the physiques, morphed in a sense. I think guys liked this fact that that there was a lot more mass now, and guys were routinely going from competing in the low 220s to competing now in the high 260, 270s. Look, I'm a muscle guy. Most of us who watch the sport are about muscle. We want to see bigger guys. So it's nice that they have now something else to go to. So in other words, if you're collecting, baseball cards, you might like the Yankees, but you still want the other teams as well. So, but if you had to pick one or the other, you might always go with the Yankee cards. So I like the fact that we actually have all the teams, so to speak, in bodybuilding now. If you like a guy with just a nice upper body and maybe they can't build legs yet, you got Men's Physique. If you like a guy that has good proportion and a lot of muscle, but in the right places and is limited, then you have Classic, and then obviously open bodybuilding. And then in the pro ranks, you have 212 too. So there's something for everyone. And I think that those categories, at least in the men's divisions, are solid. I think they've covered everything. I think the women have too many divisions, but that's another story altogether. I think for the men, we have it right now.
Second question again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. We have a good one. Maybe one that you were not expecting to hear from our Instagram pool to start things off. But finishing up the question from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Any new species products projected for 2023? Maybe even if not products, maybe any new flavors.
We're always thinking. We're always trying. Here's my thinking process on the line of products that I have. I have the stuff that people need to take and should take for good health, muscle recovery, all those things. I don't want to dilute the line with stuff that people really don't need, just for the sake of having another product. Because ultimately those are what we call boutique products or flash in the pan products. They do well for a little bit and then they disappear. I'm not interested in doing that. When I put out a product, it's got to be solid. We are looking to reformulate our Protolize, which is our protein pudding, which is amazing. If you guys haven't tried it, Protolize is 30 grams of protein per serving, and it's instant pudding. You add 2 ounces of cold water, you mix it up. It's when you're dieting, it's the most delicious thing you can possibly. You will swear you're cheating at night. I'm reformulating it. Most probably, I'm working on getting the right formulation about putting a probiotic mix in it, so that not only are you getting the pudding, because a lot of people take it at night, but you're going to get good probiotics that are heat stable. So that, in other words, they don't need to be refrigerated. That's the key. Heat stable, good probiotics that will help the colon and the small intestine repopulate them. And that's something we're looking into certainly for either the first or second quarter of 23. And then there's a million products running through my head all the time that I don't want to cannibalize on another product. So I'm not going to release what I think I'd like to put out. I would like to put a bar out at some point, but I just don't know if it's in this day and age, if there's anything that I can put out that I actually would say, shit, this is better than everything out there. So that's what I'm working on. Most likely Protolize will be reformulated with a really, really high quality probiotic mix. And that's the next big product. If you guys are liking the Dave Palumbo Experience app, or if you haven't tried it, you downloaded it at your iTunes store or the Android store. It's $29 a month. You get me in your back pocket, basically, as your personal trainer. We put workouts up every week. You have all my videos and writings that I've ever done in one place. So it's a nice library of that. I answer everyone's questions in an open forum on the app. So everyone sees everyone's questions, everyone's answers. I do a Q&A video exclusively for the app, just like this Ask Dave, it's only for the app members. We do it every single week. I never miss a week. And it's a great value, and it's a great holiday gift if you want to get someone. So check it out.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, the handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time here on YouTube, or if you just caught on or after Olympia weekend, we welcome you. We invite you to stay and sample all that we have on this channel. Obviously, there is this show, 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Then live on the channel, we have an all-new episode of After Hours. And if you haven't seen that, or if you didn't sit through it yesterday, that episode was about an hour, 45 minutes. It was about 7 different episodes blended into one, but it was an absolute laugh fest. It was hilarious. I wouldn't even know where to start. We had so many different topics, but it really was laugh out loud funny. So check that out. Of course, all new episode of Heavy Muscle Radio, which if you haven't watched recently, we have pretty much gone exclusively now to a live format. Sunday night, generally around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dave, Chris Aceto, Then we mix in recurring guests as well. Sometimes Lee Priest, sometimes John Romano, and then sometimes just special guest, whatever, to give their analysis, whatever. But obviously, over the last few weeks, been very Olympia heavy in terms of analysis, and then very quickly we're going to be turning our attention to the Arnold Classic. Hard to believe that's going to be in just 3 months in Columbus, Ohio. So again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, we appreciate your support throughout the course of the calendar year. Interesting one here. Again, this is one, Dave, that I'm not sure you expected to answer today or really anytime recently. And that is about Caverjet and how it changed the game, no longer being manufactured. However, the question is from Duncan's dad. There are UG labs everywhere, brilliant UG chemists. Why could it not be produced? And I guess if you know the backstory, what is the backstory to Caverjet no longer being available?
I don't even know the story, to be honest with you. I don't know why they stopped making it. I think it's a little it's a great tool for people who have erection issues, because you literally inject. It's a prostaglandin. You inject in there and it dilates the vessel, and it basically prevents blood from leaving the penis for a certain period of time. So you get an erection that can last a couple hours. Now, if you take too much of it, which we've heard some horror stories from Lee Priest, a really bad horror story from Lee Priest, you sometimes have to have it drained or surgery on it. So I think a lot of people were doing dangerous stuff with it, Sid. And I think maybe that's why they pulled it. That's the only reason I could think of. But to be honest with you, I don't know. And I'm sure there's a European company that probably makes it somewhere, or I'm sure there's someplace in China that it's probably being made at this point, that people, if they want it, they will find it. Nothing ever really disappears. It kind of just fades off, and then another person picks up the slack, because let's face it, where there's an ability to make money, someone will always step into that empty role and will do it. They stopped making Anavar here, I remember, in 1992, I think it was, and it's back. It's back. Not only is it back because it was still being made in Italy and a couple other places, but the United States started making it again, which is funny because usually, if they discontinue a drug, you would think it would never come back. But another company said, wait a second, we can make money off this. And I think it was initially brought back because of the AIDS epidemic and to help AIDS patients with wasting syndrome. And it was because it was something that women and men could take. Because it doesn't have side effects. And now it's back. So even Anadrol is back, which no one ever thought was going to come back. So I don't suspect the company that's making it might not want to make it, but I'm sure some other company will. In the meantime, I don't know, but I suspect it's probably around in Europe still.
Let's go to 2023 Pie Show. I'm glad that they asked this question in the format that they asked it. Obviously, much of the discussion about the Olympia was about prejudging and, the amount of classes, the amount of time it took, and then really the time that the men's open class took the stage. So the question is, well, I agree that something should be done with the format of the Olympia. As my 4-year-old walks in, what would you suggest? Could they ever start the weekend Wednesday with the Meet the Olympians and have classes go on Thursday? So it's something that you have discussed in the past, where instead of a 2-day show, they go with a 3-day format.
I think your son should start reading the questions for the rest of the show, personally. But no, in all honesty, I think that I think the fans would welcome an extra day, to be honest with you, because it is the Olympia weekend. It is the biggest weekend. They're starting the amateurs on Tuesday. Leslie Timble, our very own, she competed on Tuesday at the Olympia. So everyone's there. So I don't see why it would be a big deal to start the pro a day early to spread it out a little bit more. Matter of fact, you might sell more pay-per-views that way, because you know what? You're going to have a 3-day pay-per-view instead of a 2-day or a 4-day, whatever. I guess they stream everything. You'll have a 5-day pay-per-view. People will feel like they're getting much more for their money, and you can probably charge a few bucks more. I think it would be a great idea. It's terrible when you jam too much into one show. Look, the greatest movie of all time, I love The Hobbit, okay? Not The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings. I love those movies. They're super long. I enjoy them so much more when I watch them at home, because I can stop the tape or whatever we're watching these days, the digital video, and I can take a break. I can watch it again tomorrow. because it's very long. They're 3 hours, and it's hard. And I love it. But what happens is you get fatigued after a while. You can't keep watching it and enjoy it just as much. Same thing with the Olympia. I could watch bodybuilding every single day. If you gave me an hour or two a night, I could watch it. But when you give me 8 hours of it, I don't even want to look at it anymore. So it's fan fatigue. So you don't want to give them that. You want to give them a very, very fresh, show. And if you did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I don't think anyone would complain. You could even do a Sunday if you want. No one's going to complain. You make the men's open always Saturday night because that's the premier event. It was called the Mr. Olympia for a reason because it's about the men. The other classes will still get watched, but not if you jam them all into one day. It's too much.
Question more so for newbies. Your thoughts on newbies overcomplicating and trying to, quote unquote, optimize every movement. I'm assuming he's talking about in terms of training.
Sometimes micromanaging things is not necessarily a good thing to do. I see guys, sometimes they go into the gym, and if you're talking about training, they want to do every single exercise for back because this one works this area, and this one works that area. And I made that mistake when I first started working out. When I first got into a gym, I was working out in my school's gym, which was all free weights. There was no machines at all. So how much can you do free weight? You do for chest, you do incline barbell, you do, dumbbells, presses, and then you do flies. I mean, that's really all there is. Maybe some pullovers, right? With dumbbell pull-ups. But when you go into a gym now and you have, 6 chest machines, now you can do your incline bench press, flat bench press, decline bench press. You can do, you could do 4 different machines. There's so much you can do that before you know it, you've done 35 sets and you've overtrained yourself. So the basics are what build muscle. And so I always tell people, go into the gym and pick 3 exercises you're going to do, 3 sets, or 4 exercises, 3 sets per exercise, and just go do that and then leave. You don't have to do everything. Same thing with taking drugs. People think, all right, test and equipoise are not enough for me to grow. I got to take this thing for that, and I got to take cabergoline to prevent the prolactin, and I got to take arimidex to combat estrogen, and I got to take GH, and then I got to take insulin because the GH is going to make the insulin resistant. They're worried about too many different variables. They haven't even had one side effect yet, and they're already on 14 different drugs. So yeah, how about try testosterone and equipoise and just see how your body responds first. And then if you're having side effects, address those. So you can definitely micromanage too much to the point where you start getting OCD about it. I have guys contacting me. They're like, I think I'm taking too much arimidex, and they're taking so many drugs, they don't even know what's causing side effects. I'm like, how about we just take you off all these things and we'll slowly put one at a time back in as you need them. And then we'll figure out what's working and what's not working. And I think that's sometimes like the most, I guess it's Occam's razor. The most complex, questions have the simplest solutions.
Let's go to Nico Cantemir, big fan of the show. Says he's 60 years old. Read your off-season anabolic cycle, pre-contest cycle, off-season diet, and pre-contest diet on the app. Do you think for a 60-year-old male, this amount of gear and food is a good idea? Says he wants to compete in his 60s.
If you're going to compete, okay, at an older age, diet is diet, okay? It is what it is. Your protein requirements are going to be based on, how much muscle you have and, and how fast your metabolism is going to dictate, carbohydrate intake. So food is food. Okay. You're going to need you might need more food. You might, depending on your metabolism, it really depends, especially if you have a lot of muscle maturity from all the years of training. The drugs are something that I would modify. I would not take any orals if you're over the age of 40. There's no reason to. I'm talking like Dianabol and Anadrol, and there's no reason to take these pills. Okay. They're very toxic to the liver. The injectables do everything and more. Likewise, I wouldn't be going excessive with the dosages. I would keep testosterone, 750 milligrams per week to 1,000 milligrams per week. I would not ever go over that. There's no reason to. I would stick with long-acting injectables because they're less toxic. Remember, as we get older, our ability to detoxify our body becomes less efficient. So you want to take compounds that are not necessarily toxic. DECA, equipoise, long-acting compounds like that. You don't want to be taking, a lot of like trenbolone acetate. Probably would not be. I wouldn't take any trenbolone if I was over 60, to be honest with you, because it does raise blood pressure, does raise anxiety, it does speed your heart up a little bit. There's no reason to take any of those toxic compounds. And make sure you follow a prudent supplement regimen, because when you get older, your body has more vitamin and mineral deficiencies. So you're going to want to take your B mineralized for your vitamin minerals mix. You're going to want to take something like omega lyze for your essential fatty acids. You're certainly going to want to take a fiber supplement like fiber lyze to protect your colon. There's no debating those things. You need those, and you need them in the sufficient amounts that I recommend you taking, because your body is not as capable of absorbing vitamins and minerals and of using them efficiently. When you're younger, you can get away. You can fudge it a little bit and still get good benefits from it. But that's, if you go along with a very safe route like that, and you get your health checks and you get your blood work done every 3 to 6 months, I don't think you have anything to worry about. Now, if you have health problems and you're trying to say, hey, I want to do a cycle, and you have a heart arrhythmia, or you have a 80% blockage and you have 5 stents in your heart, probably not a good idea to be on anabolics. But assuming you're healthy, I think that's prudent.
Let's go to Sonny Smith. Why does my T4 level go to almost 0 while running HGH?
I don't know why it would be 0, but when you're on growth hormone makes your body convert more T4, which is inactive thyroid hormone, into T3 active thyroid hormone, which makes sense logically when you figure, hey, GH does speed up fat burning. It does have a direct fat burning effect, but it also has a fat burning effect by cranking up T3 levels in the body. The way it does that is the T4 converts to T3 at a higher rate, which would lower your T4, keep T3 a little higher, which should keep your TSH around the same. But you shouldn't go to 0. That's kind of weird. Now, if you told me you were taking Cytomel, which was T3, synthetic T3, I would say, okay, that makes sense, because if you're taking T3, your body's not going to produce its own T4. But if you're on nothing thyroid-wise, you're just on GH, it's a little weird that your T4 is 0. I can see it being low, but not 0. Something sounds like it might not be right.
Let's go to TNT Superfit. I have a hyperactive pancreas. I produce a lot of insulin. When I eat simple carbs or sugars, my pancreas kicks in and my blood sugar drops. How can I structure my diet to use this to my advantage?
Well, I don't know if you're going to use it to your advantage as much as what I would recommend is if you're a hyperinsulin secretor, it could be the number one that sometimes before the pancreas starts to fail, it starts to overproduce. So that's not a good thing, because what happens is sometimes if your body's producing auto antibodies, it can stimulate the pancreatic beta cells to produce more insulin. Let's assume that's not the case. Let's assume that when you eat carbs, your body just releases a lot of insulin, it drops your blood sugar. Okay. What you should do is that means you're absorbing your carbs too quickly. Try to combine all your carb and protein meals with a fat source, whether it be a tablespoon of like my macadamia nut oil, or avocado, half an avocado, or some nuts. If you mix fats into your protein and carbs, it's going to slow the absorption into the bloodstream, which is going to slow the output of insulin. Because remember, insulin will be released into the bloodstream quickly if you have fast-acting carbs with no fats around that enter the bloodstream really quickly. So if you were to do like high molecular weight carbohydrate, like Carbolyze, for instance, and an isolized shake, post-workout, protein carbs, they enter the bloodstream super fast. You're going to get a huge release of insulin. Probably in your case, you might get too much insulin. You might even go low blood sugar. But if you were to put like a tablespoon of macadamia nut oil in with that, fats slow the transit time of food through the intestinal tract, which is going to reduce how fast the blood glucose levels go up, which is going to reduce your insulin output. So that's my suggestion, adding a fat source to all your meals. It's a simple solution, and it'll prevent you from going hypo. It's something that I used to use a lot, especially pre-workout. Like a lot of times guys like to have some really fast-acting carbs and protein pre-workout, and then in the middle of the workout, they just get low blood sugar from that. And so just put a little bit of fat, I'll put a tablespoon of mac oil in there, mix it in, and it works wonders. It just makes that shake much more sustaining, and it releases over time as opposed to all in one shot into the bloodstream.
We mentioned at the top of the show that the Arnold Classic is in 3 months. Do we have, to your knowledge, I mean, I spoke to Samson Dowda, who obviously confirmed that he's going to be doing the Arnold, or he's intent on doing the Arnold Classic. Hunter Labrada says he will not be doing the Arnold Classic. Chris Aceto told us that Brandao will not be doing the Arnold Classic. A, do you have a short list so far of those that are intent? And then B, the question from Phil Killerin, should Shaun Clarida do the Arnold? Keep in mind, there is no 212 class at the Arnold Classic. So obviously that would mean Shaun Clarida competing in the open class.
You know, Nick Walker said he's not doing it either, which I thought was a mistake. I thought we were going to see him in that show because that would have been perfect for him. He could have definitely gone in there and possibly won that show. As far as who's going to enter, I don't know. I think Shaun Clarida going into the open class would be interesting to see. You know, if he intends on staying in 212 for the Olympia next year, I would absolutely do the Arnold in the open. What does he got to lose? He doesn't have to requalify for the 212. He's the Olympia champ. He can do whatever he wants. Do this show in 8 weeks, then shut it down for the rest of the year and do the Olympia. Defend your title. The great thing about him is he doesn't have to make weight in the 212 because he's so far below the weight class that he's not even close to tapping out on that. So I would absolutely imagine he places top 5 at the Arnold, which I think he's absolutely capable of. What a feather in his cap that would be. That's a giant killer right there. I think it's a great idea. As far as who else is going to go into the show, I don't know. I would have to. I should ask Steve Kuklo if he's going to do it. That would be a good move for him, I would think. But I know he's trying to have a baby now, so I don't know if he's going to enter that. I think that Arnold is wide open. I really think that someone's going to come in there. Maybe Nathan D'Asher will go in there and do some damage because he obviously didn't do the Olympia. He took some time off. I think that would be a good move for him. If I were Ian Valliere, I'd want to try to get a little, retribution for not really speaking well at the. If I were him, he should jump into that show. That's a title that he could absolutely win and that he hasn't won, and it's a nice paycheck. He'd be crazy not to try that. But I don't think anyone's committed yet. Not everyone.
What about like a Regan Grimes?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe that's why he skipped the Olympia so he can do the Arnold. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea for him, unless he wants to wait a complete calendar year and then get back on stage, putting a lot more mass on. I don't know what his plan is. The Arnold is a great show, but it's weird because it's very early in the season, and a lot of these guys just came off the Olympia. They want a break already. They don't want to do it, but it's so close to the Olympia. I would just go do it and then shut it down for the rest of the year. If I'm a guy who I think could win don't be surprised if you see Bonac in that show. I think Bonac's got unfinished business. We're going to get him on the show for an interview when he has some family stuff going on, but he absolutely does not want to end, on such a sour note. I can see him jumping into the Arnold and winning it, actually.
Bonac, who won the show 2 out of 3 years. What years was it? 2017, I believe.
Brandon won it twice, right? Did Bonac win it twice or once?
I think he's won it twice, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Obviously, he won it in the year before Nick Walker, 2020. I'll have to verify that. But anyway, speaking of Nick Walker, question from 3BZ3EP. I'd love your thoughts on Nick Walker's lat spread poses. His back lat spread in particular looks a little unusual and somewhat uncomfortable for him, and I've noticed no one has mentioned this before. Additionally, your thoughts on posing in general, from my observation. Posing gracefully these days seem to be non-existent. Not like we've had this discussion before in many different formats about posing in general maybe being deprioritized to a certain extent. But let's focus on the question, the first question about Nick Walker's lat spread poses. To his observation, maybe seems a little uncomfortable in those poses. Your thoughts?
Yeah. First of all, I don't want to see Nick Walker trying to do posing like Shaun Ray to a love song. That's not his physique. He's got the heavy metal, heroic music, like hit the muscle shots, you don't try to be something you're not on stage. So right off the bat, he's got to pose, to his strengths, which is mass and freakiness. Having said that, I think his lat spreads, I think he's flexing too hard. And what's happening is he's locking down his scapula. So he's having a lat spread. You're supposed to spread open, your scapula. But if you're too constricted because you're actually, trying to pose too hard, to squeeze the muscles too hard, you lock down the scapula and it doesn't roll open. The lat spread is actually a relaxed pose for your upper body. Your legs you're flexing and your glutes you're flexing, but for the upper body, you're actually just relaxing open that scapula. And the more you can relax it and open it, the wider your lat spread is going to look. So I think when he gets all hyped up on stage, sometimes he probably just flexes his body too much and it locks the scapula. He's opening it, but he can open it more. And he has to just work on relaxing. Look, when you're up on that Olympia stage, there's a lot of adrenaline going through you, and you want to just blast those shots out on stage. But you have to remember with the lat spreads, it's a relaxing pose, and you have to relax that scapula, or it's not going to open up, and you're not going to get the width that you really have. So I think that's more of a problem, and that's just comes with experience. The more he does this, the more comfortable he is on stage. It's going to come effortlessly, and I'm telling you, it'll get better. He has a good back. He has a really good back. He just, maybe on the lat spreads, he's not opening it up all the way.
I'll take one more question. But before this last question, this one is from Rhino Pharma Domestic. More of a thank you. As an end to 2022, I would like to take the time and thank you for a full year of great educational videos. I see it making its way across the community. I refer at least a few people a week, if not daily, to watch your videos for proper advice, as it's not just my words. You and the guys are from time to time. That's not old school, but in fact, you are part of the school. So I'm not sure exactly what I meant towards the end. But again, his well wishes are very appreciated. And I think his sentiments are shared across the bodybuilding community for this show and really for all the advice, a lot of the free advice, Dave, that you provide to the community. And again, this show, I think we're running on, like year number 7 now.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. I'm to think like this show literally started questions that you were taking from the bulletin boards on RxMuscle.com. Right. And then we figured instead of you typing out literal response after response after response, why not add this to the RxMuscle, channel lineup, it's a quick 30-minute question and answer show where people are going to ask questions anyway. So you may as well just answer them on a TV format. And lo and behold, all these years later, here we are. Final question from Alexander Yeramazov. Is it likely to get a woman pregnant while you're 12 weeks deep into a cycle?
Well, I don't know if the word it's unlikely that you would, but it's not. Don't use that as birth control. I'm telling you guys, I know a lot of bodybuilders, not me, luckily, that have gotten, girls pregnant while on a massive cycle. Okay. And I've given you this explanation before, but it makes sense, the explanation, but it's not foolproof. In other words, it doesn't always work. The reason why you're more fertile when you produce testosterone in your own testicles is because that testosterone is being pumped into the bloodstream in the testicle, right? What else is in the testicle? The sperm production cells, the Sertoli cells that actually make the sperm. So you're actually releasing testosterone right on top of these cells, which is stimulating them to produce more sperm, okay? When you take an exogenous source of testosterone, you shut down testosterone production in your testicles, right? So now those Sertoli cells are only being exposed to what's coming through to them through the bloodstream there, which is much diluted throughout the whole body. You're not getting a localized, release of testosterone there. And so usually the sperm cells slow down and stop producing enough sperm. Or in most cases, they produce no sperm. As you raise the dose up that you're injecting exogenously, the concentration of testosterone going through the bloodstream now increases. So guys that are on really, really massive cycles actually have a very high amount of testosterone in their bloodstream. And sometimes that will re-stimulate those Sertoli cells as that testosterone passes through the bloodstream in your testicular circulation. Sometimes it will turn the testicles back on. Most of the time it doesn't, okay? So, like I said, never happened to me before. I never got anyone pregnant, but in some people it happened. Ronnie Coleman told me he got a couple of girls pregnant while he was on a cycle. I know Victor Martinez, and there's a countless number of people out there who were on a cycle and got their girls pregnant. So it is not good birth control. Matter of fact, I think that taking less testosterone, I think like 100 milligrams a week would probably make you less fertile than taking, a full-blown cycle, because, You're not taking enough that would ever have a high enough concentration in that area. Now, some guys on HRT, though, are on HCG also. So they're more fertile than they think sometimes. So there's no real way to know, aside from doing a sperm analysis and see what your numbers are and what your motility, which is the ability to swim, are. Like I said, I was on nothing for my third child. I was just taking glutathione. Who knew? Glutathione actually increased motility of sperm. I obviously had enough sperm still in my testicles because I'd just done, for 3 years, I was doing fertility, for the other two kids. And my sperm levels were high enough, and I took taking the glutathione injections every day. It gave me good motility, and I got my third child. So you never know. Can't use it as birth control, but more than likely, if you're on HRT, you're probably not getting anyone pregnant.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, reminder, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. On the channel right now, all new episode of After Hours, hour 45-minute long episode, about 7 different episodes meshed into one all new episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. And then, of course, go back about 2 weeks. We have all sorts of content from the Olympia preview, and of course, everything that we did wrapping up the Olympia. We have, I'm not going to mention who, but we do have another Olympia wrap-up segment planned, probably going to go live tomorrow. So Dave and the aforementioned mystery guests are going to do another full breakdown of some of the biggest storylines, what went right, what went wrong, and perhaps who is to blame. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.